Hi, my name is Kanal, and welcome to the Geeks of the Valley podcast, which connects with some of the brightest minds globally who are leading their respective industries today to discuss the hottest upcoming industry trends and how their work is affecting the global economy. What started off as a coffee chat has now grown into a global platform for visionaries. This morning from Miami, Florida, we have the current board member of Banco Sol South America, one of Bolivia's largest financial institutions, and current head of the SoftBank Operating Group, focusing on scaling, knowledge, and crypto. Please welcome Laura Gaviria Halaby. Laura, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Kunal, for having me here. Very impressed with your Spanish pronunciation of my name.
And how are things with you in light of COVID?
Good, actually. As you mentioned, I'm based in Miami. In Miami, we had like a privileged situation, based on the fact that everything can be done kind of outdoors. The weather is good. We did go through like 4 months of lockdown, but at the end we just had like I think a very privileged situation with the rest of the world, and we're able to keep our lives as similar to before COVID as anyone else. And then the city benefited from that fact, and today we have a really strong community in the tech and venture space in Miami that was starting to be created years ago, but that completely boomed after COVID.
And speaking of the tech space, tell us a bit about your background and how it led you to be a leader at the SoftBank Operating Group, focusing on scaling knowledge and crypto.
Sure, Kuda. Well, I am Colombian originally. I was born in Medellin and grew up in Bogota. And I think being Colombian and living in South America for so long has played a super strong role in who I am today. I come from a very entrepreneurial family, especially my father in the coffee business. So grew up with amazing role models around me that was just wherever they would see a problem, they tried to find a solution and fix it through entrepreneurship. And I think that was very important for me to see. I was also always surrounded by different type of people, and in a very young age realized that even though sometimes they had the same level of talent, the difference between some of those people and myself were the opportunities. And I think that's the same for a lot of people in Latam that just don't have the right opportunities. And for me, those opportunities early on, I realized that were around access to education, access to financial services, and just access to a very strong like social network that just can help you open doors along the lines, right? So I always knew from the very beginning that I wanted to do something around that space. Didn't know exactly what, but around that space. And then started my career as not even my career, like I started studying applied mathematics because I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do. I knew that I wanted to work with something related to education or be an entrepreneur, but not exactly where. So I'm like, I'm just gonna basically go and study something that it's gonna teach me how to think. And when I had the chance to do my first internship, I kind of had discussing with my father that I would go back into potentially doing something in government. He's like, look, you know what? The best way to make an impact is as an entrepreneur or supporting entrepreneurs. So I ended up starting my career just in financial services in a traditional venture no, in a traditional bank. So my first actual like internship job was as a Deutsche Bank in New York. And I stayed there for a long time. And although it was interesting, I didn't feel that I was making any impact to actual people, right? Like I was so detached from the actual folks that I, in theory, wanted to support that it didn't make any sense. So I left the bank to actually do my own entrepreneurship in Latin America, in Colombia, and started a broker dealer in Colombia. And that was an amazing experience. It shaped a lot of my knowledge as an entrepreneur, but it also, the whole focus was to create like a fintech company. It was not called fintech at that point, but it was to create a fintech company that would allow more and more people to have actual access to financial services, from savings to trading to the whole spectrum. And for me, that opportunity would allow people to create more companies, to be more entrepreneurial, and hopefully create more opportunities for Colombia at that point. So that was my first experience with actually being an entrepreneur. Worked a lot in the space of crowdfunding. I don't think it was even called that at that point, but in Latin America and in Colombia especially, we could do very small sales of real estate assets through the concept of like fiduciary trust pieces. Now we call it more like tokenization in the crypto space or something along those lines. But at that point, it was very important because it would allow people to invest very, very small amounts of money in assets that usually you would have to have a lot of resources to be able to be part of them. So that was even before the Jobs Act in the US, which regulated kind of the concept of crowdfunding. Again, it was only allowed in Colombia along real estate. But for me, it was fascinating. It was like, if you give more access to people to own, to be able to be part of the economy, you would just open very, very big doors for folks. So always passionate about the concept of democratizing access and giving people opportunities. I had my company for several years, and then I exited. And since I had studied applied math and basically gone to a very good school, but not in my concept the best school in the world, which was MIT, because I went and played Division I volleyball for American University. When I sold my company, I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to apply to one school to do my MBA, and this would be my sabbatical before I decide what I'm going to do in life. So I applied to MIT, got in, and I think it was one of the most exciting years of my life, going back to school, and it was kind of being a kid in a candy store, just taking on all the knowledge and being open to a bunch of opportunities and new technologies that I wasn't exposed before. So when I left MIT, I wanted to go back to very clearly work with entrepreneurs. I found out of the concept of accelerators. That was back like in 2015. So I was like, you know what? I think I'm going to go back and start an accelerator for Latin America. But actually was recruited by a good friend now to open the concept of developer portal at Citibank. I kind of had problems myself never to go back and work in a bank after all those years in financial services before. This was a very different way to work in a bank. It was basically trying to figure out what would be those bridges and integrations with small and newer companies and startups at that point that were changing the world through financial services and could be connected with an institution like Citi and basically accelerate Citi's transformation and accelerate Citi's penetration everywhere in the world. That was a really cool experience. I joined an amazing team. And basically our team was in charge of finding those very cool different things that were happening in financial services around the world and connecting it to Citi. I got to travel basically 3 weeks out of the month for years, to Singapore, to the Middle East, to Africa, of course, to Latin America and Europe as well. And it was really incredible to see the difference on how the financial services space was developing in each region, depending on very specific needs. So when you would go to Singapore, you will see all of these amazing technologies around, I don't know, AML and KYC, or very specific on just becoming better and better technologies. But would you go to Africa and Latin America, is just like, how do I get more people to actually just have a bank account? We need to start from the basic and going and solving for penetration. So it was really interesting, and I fell in love with the concept of financial services even more, and how it opens and brings new opportunity. I stayed there for a long for a while. I ended up being global head of fintech acceleration for the entire organization. We did a lot of open innovation challenges to source those amazing entrepreneurs. Things like the City Mobile Challenge that had the series all over the different countries, and we had the opportunity to get exposure very early, like that was around 2015, early for me, on crypto solutions, on companies like Coinbase that and City Ventures ended up being invested, or a lot of solutions that were trying to make sure that you would track that donations were not being misused. Companies like ATech, for example, was one of the solutions that won at some point one of our global challenges that we did in terms of solving integrity issues around the world. And it was just a very interesting time. And at that point, I'm like, okay, it would be great to not only be able to source these amazing entrepreneurs, but I want to invest in them as well. So after having an amazing career at Citi, and it's an institution that I think shaped a lot of my knowledge today, I wanted to be in the investment side. So I left Citi to play more role from an investing perspective, but always with this concept that I wanted to continue accelerated entrepreneurs. So it shouldn't be only like an investment role. I was part of a fund called City Ventures for a while, that it's based in Miami. Then I helped the IDB lab go through the transformation of going from the FOMIN, which was a very traditional type of institution, to what it's now the IDB lab, led by a good friend, Irene Arias, who are basically leading all the early stage grants and investment in Latin America and the Caribbean, and all these places where sometimes investment is neglected. And finally, I learned that Marcelo Claure was going to launch a fund out of SoftBank, specialized only in Latin America and out of Miami. And for me, that was like kind of like my dream job, working with someone like Marcelo Claure, who I had followed his career for a while and came to admire a lot as an entrepreneur, and everything that he did with Brightstar. I said, if I can work for Marcelo, that would be amazing. And now I would get the opportunity to actually be 100% concentrated and working for Latin America. So I got the chance to speak with him. I was basically hired as employee number 1 of the operating group at that point. The fund was just barely starting. That was over 3 years ago. And with Marcelo, I was not joining a fund. I was kind of joining a mission, and I think all of us felt the same way. And it was we were in a mission to transform Latin America. And basically 3 years later, it has been incredible to see that mission was accomplished by being part of a great team that has invested at this point almost over 8 billion in the region, and we have close to 100 companies right now in our portfolio. So that has been my journey, and now that's how I ended up in SoftBank, which is, I think, right now one of the most amazing entrepreneurial platforms in the world, and also being part of the SoftBank Vision Fund family of funds, it makes it even more powerful, and the synergies that we can have across portfolio companies is very special and very different from other funds in the space.
What a phenomenal background, Laura. And speaking about SoftBank, the company has a reputation of supporting entrepreneurs beyond capital. What does that mean in your eyes?
Yes, actually, I think that's one of the most important things that Masa believes, right? Which is it's not only about bringing capital to entrepreneurs, which is something that of course we have, but it's like how do we bring and spark synergies across the different companies in the portfolio, and how do we bring operational support to our portfolios? So right now, in all of our funds, and then just talking specifically about Latin America, we have basically two groups: a group that is responsible for all the investment decisions, and us, which is the operating group that is led by Alex Shapiro out of Brazil, um, where our role is to basically help in the sourcing of opportunities, go through that support in terms of due diligence process from an operational perspective. And once the companies are part of our portfolio, then helping with all their key strategic needs, right? From geographic expansion to a little bit more in terms of product marketing and technology, with all of their people, talent, and organizational needs. And I think that makes us very, very different than any other fund, and especially in Latin America, where we always talk about Latin America as if it was one big country, but it's not. Every country is very different culturally, law, regulation, and it makes it a very tough place to do business. And that's where an organization like ours can help our entrepreneurs either as they start to scale and become even more regional or global, to be able to go easy from one side to the other, because of all the knowledge that we have behind. So basically the main thing that we have that puts us and differentiate us is this operating group, where we have very different professionals internally that have clear expertise in sectors or topics that are going to help our companies further.
And given this operating group, you have what is called the SoftBank Operator School. What is the SoftBank Operator School, and why is it important? In a sense, what are you trying to achieve with it?
No, exactly. So we have, remember we started the Latin American Fund three years ago, a little bit over 3 years ago. And basically, I remember the first 6 months, I was able to be in touch with 100% of our new companies and CEOs. I would say that even potentially the first year, I was actually able to meet personally every CEO. We were able to support them on a one-to-one basis, and it would make it easier for us to just be very one-on-one with each portfolio company on helping them with all their operational needs. And one of the key things that we started to realize is more than the support from SoftBank, the way they would benefit themselves even more was by talking to each other, right? As my father always says, there's very smart people that learn from their own mistakes. And then there's brilliant people that not only learn from their own mistakes, but learn from the mistakes of others. And that was the key, right? How do we get the experience of other successful entrepreneurs to teach and basically share their learnings with some of the others? But in the beginning, we would have basically that most of our founders wanted to speak with the same one, right? To the same CEO that had already made it, that it was already a unicorn company, let's say. And after a while, it would kind of make no sense to use all the time for the same entrepreneurs to talk to the same CEOs on a one-on-one basis. So we're like, how do we not only make their knowledge more scalable, but also the support that we as an operating group bring to our portfolio companies more scalable? And we created this concept of the SoftBank Group Operator School. We have a SoftBank Group Operator School that is external, which anybody can join. And today we have almost 45 master classes taught by our own entrepreneurs and our operators and some very close people from our network on topics like how to become a better operator and founder, on fundraising, and just all those topics in the middle of that space. We also have a SoftBank Operator School for founders and leaders that it's only internal and it's only very specific for our portfolio companies, and it makes it such that once you become a SoftBank company, basically we bring you even more special content and access that anyone else in the ecosystem. And the whole thing around that is, how do we make our operational capabilities and our network more scalable? And we realize that this would benefit as well the community. So we now have it open for the rest of the world. Again, we have almost already trained and upskilled 8,000 people from 50 countries around the world. Of course, mainly people are based in the US and Miami, especially because we're here, Latin America as well. We have the content simultaneously translated to Spanish, but we also have closed captions in Portuguese and Spanish. And actually recently got a request to basically from a university to translate all the content in Turkish, because they wanted to have it more accessible to their entrepreneurs. And that's what we want. We want as much as possible for people to learn from the exceptional founders that we have internal, from some of the exceptional operators that are part of the SoftBank family, and from our network, on how to keep bringing amazing solutions to the ecosystem. And hopefully a lot of those companies become companies that we invest in as SoftBank, or some of those people that get upskills through the program become employees of our portfolio companies. And just in general, we get more people to be able to teach each other. So that's why we created it. And we just want to keep it, make it bigger, make it more accessible for everyone, translate it to as much languages as possible, but make sure that people have access to this amazing tool and wealth of education from our founders.
And I hear there is some exciting news in the works around launching the SoftBank Operator School Crypto Edition. Tell us about this. It seems to be quite an exciting masterclass that you guys are putting together.
Yes, we are launching our season 3. So this would be a 10-week curriculum program where we're going to have 2 sessions per week. And we will have over 25 experienced founders and operators and fund managers teaching all the foundational skills on how to navigate Web3. But it's mainly for Web 2 companies or traditional companies that need to understand, why is this important? Why are these technologies relevant? What are the foundations? What does it entail? And basically, what are the new business models that Web3 is unlocking, and how can potentially they should be thinking about them to incorporate within their businesses if it makes sense. We're going to, again, make it open and available for everyone around the world. And the idea is to go through this journey and spark not only to our portfolio companies the knowledge that it's important to have in this blockchain era and blockchain revolution, but also to the community, so that they are more aware of what's outside, what's available, and what are these business models, and how are they super powerful, and they could bring benefits to whatever company they're putting together. We've done this in the past with other key technologies that we believe are really important and in the center of what we do, like the concept of AI, which we're very passionate about, and we believe that it just brings incredible moats. And again, we've done very interesting educational programs around AI and bringing more data and analytics literacy into our portfolio companies and into the community. And we want to do the same with blockchain and crypto.
And speaking of this shift from Web 2.0 to Web 3.0, given your experience as a venture capitalist, with extensive exposure in the fintech and crypto space. How can a Web 2.0 entrepreneur land an opportunity within the Web 3.0 industry? Is the barrier of entry difficult to overcome?
I think in Latin America, especially, the opportunity is gigantic on becoming kind of the center of the crypto revolution. Today in our portfolio, we have around 100 companies, and very few of them, I think a handful, are basically in the Web3 space. And I believe that in a couple of years, we're going to see that all of them will use this technology in one way or another, right? Either just the blockchain perspective of it, or if they start leveraging crypto, basically leveraging some of the business models that can come out of that. And in Latin America, in especially, is important because the core principles of Web3 are aligned with the reality of our region from the very beginning. I don't know who used to said this, but I think it was fascinating that basically everyone in Latin America is born a macroeconomist, because we have to deal with so much turbulence around our currencies and around our governments that that we need to become a little bit different and more ingenious about how we understand the economics behind everything we do. So Web3, with the core principles of ownership, right, which provides more control for people to monetize their work. Basically, the concept of governance, where it's creating new business models and new opportunities for to empower people and organizations to have a say in how things are governed, and put the user again as the central and like the epicenter of any solution. And basically, it also helps a lot with incentive alignments around tokenization models to make sure that people who are the users of the product get more benefit out of it than within centralized models. And I think those core three principles are going to be super important to keep unlocking business models in the region. And we're going to see more and more companies coming into the space. There's still a lot of lack of knowledge, right? And there's lack of developers. And this is not only specific to Latam, but it's relevant for all over the world. And that's why we're also bringing this level of education to the region and globally. But there's a lot of interest in this space, and we're seeing the amount of investment skyrocket. We've always had in Latam very, very relevant tech innovators. And in every good technology, if the best talent is moving there to actually build, then there's something special happening, right? And I think we're seeing some of the best entrepreneurs in the region and some of the best builders and technology folks starting to get into the space and bring solutions and unlock opportunities. So we're going to see a lot of that coming further, and we just need more and more people to be aware of the power of this technology. It's still super, super early on what things can bring to the table, but I think the opportunities are there, and we're just going to see new business models exploding and existing, and we just need to make sure that everybody has the skills and the know-how to be able to take advantage of them and bring relevant solutions to the region.
And given the explosion of these business models, when it comes to crypto, what is SoftBank's investment strategy, and what is the team's view on the future of this space?
So for us at SoftBank, we're not focused specifically in crypto, but we also understand that it's a revolution, that it's happening. And if there are companies that are bringing amazing solutions that are relevant to our market, we're going to be invested in them. A year ago, SoftBank as a whole did not have a lot of, was not looking at opportunities in this space. And today we have almost $2 billion invested as an organization in crypto. We started with more foundational stuff that was independent of the currency, let's say, or of the crypto part of it, like infrastructure deals and analytics deals, such as companies like Blockdaemon, for example, or QuickNode out of Miami. Some of analytics companies as well, like Elliptic, some NFTs and metaverse plays like Sorare and the Sandbox. And more, we're seeing great opportunities that are coming out in Latin America. For example, we're invested in exchanges such as Mercado Bitcoin and Bitso, and ETF solutions like hashtags. So we're not as an organization just focused on crypto and looking at crypto from a tunnel perspective. We're basically continue as an organization to look for the solutions that are changing the way we play, the way we work, and the way we live. And if those are transformational, and in addition are leveraging the power of blockchain and crypto, amazing, right? But it's not like we have a specific focus only for that. We do believe that it is a revolution, that it's happening, and that we have to be mindful of the space and be close to entrepreneurs who are building great things in it, and that it could be potentially a transformative technology for the region. And we just want to continue as a fund to look at the best opportunities and the best founders that are coming out of Latin America.
Laura, to wrap up our call with our last and final question for the day, what piece of advice would you give to people out there from the journey you have had so far in life?
So my advice would be not to let fear stop you from following your passion. And if you're an entrepreneur, currently the situation, the market seems a little bit complicated, but there's never been a better moment in time to be an entrepreneur than now. So if that's something that you're thinking of doing or dreaming of doing, you should just go out, build, and hopefully one day present to us and we can be an investor.
And for the people out there who are interested in speaking to you or learning more about the SoftBank Operator School, what would be the best point of contact?
Yes, I have all my social media accounts are at Lalis Gaviria. That's LALISGAVIRIA. We're going to be posting applications soon. Make sure you check all the content that it's going to be there. Everything is now open and free and accessible at the SoftBank Group Operator School.com as well. But make sure you sign in for this third season, be able to join live the sessions via Zoom and ask questions to our amazing speakers and experts that we will have during the program.
Laura, it was a pleasure having you on Geeks of the Valley, and thank you so much for joining us today.
Kunal, thank you so much for having me, and I hope we'll talk soon.
This podcast is brought to you by Python, an Asian-based open source enterprise software company. Python offers a suite of software applications and infrastructure services to scholars and universities.